Section 12.3 is about the presidency of Franklin Pierce. Franklin Pierce will serve one term as president from 1853 to 1857. In the election of 1852, the Democrats are going to put up Franklin Pierce as their candidate. He endorses the Compromise of 1850, but he was considered to be a mediocre congressman and senator. The thing that endeared him to other individuals is that he was kind of a happy-go-lucky guy. He really liked his alcohol, and so he was just kind of this upbeat kind of person, which kind of drew people in. And he's going to go up against General Winfield Scott, who was the Whig candidate. Winfield Scott was considered to be conceited, short-tempered, arrogant. He was a very rotund guy. He was very heavy, a big guy. And so it got to the point where it was either the happy guy or the cranky guy when it came up in this election of 1852. Both of their agendas were basically the same, so it came down to personality. And most people wanted the happy guy more than they wanted the cranky guy. So Franklin Pierce is going to win the presidency. The issue that is going to arise, though, however, is on his way to his inauguration, there's going to be a tragedy. On January 6, 1853, Franklin Pierce and his family boarded a train in Boston and headed for Washington, D.C. Their train derailed on the way, and it rolled down this large embankment. Pierce and his wife survived, but however, according to records, Pierce and his wife were trapped, and they had to watch their son slowly die in front of them. He was 11 years old. His name was Benjamin. He was crushed to death, and over the course of an hour or two, he bled out. And so they watched their son die. Jane Pierce saw this accident as punishment from God for her husband's pursuit of the presidency. And she even forbade him from coming home if he chose to accept the presidency. Franklin Pierce said that the American people voted for him, therefore he should fulfill the duties that they voted him into, so he does not go home. Pierce is going to spend the majority of his presidents in a drunken stupor because his grief is really going to overtake him. Jane Pierce herself goes into deep, deep, deep depression, and so both of them are going to spend the presidency separated from each other. Just depression just covers their whole world. And this allows Franklin Pierce's cabinet and Congress to basically run the country. Franklin Pierce really has no major say in it whatsoever. One of the first things that's going to happen under his presidency is the Ostend Manifesto. In 1854, U.S. expansionists are going to want Cuba as a slave state. And so they're going to try to pressure Cuba to come in as a slave state. They're even willing to go to war against Spain in hopes to get it as a slave state. It's denounced in the North and in Europe as a land grab. As well, political fallout is going to lead to significant setback for not only Pierce, but Southern congressmen who support it. Obviously, it never comes to pass. We never get Cuba as a slave state. And so it's going to cause a rift. That rift that is already there is going to expand it between the North and the South. And we do not try to get Cuba again. The next thing that's going to happen in his presidency is the Gadsden Purchase. Now, after the Mexican-American War, we received the majority of California, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona. But we don't get this bottom part that you see here, this yellow portion. So Jefferson Davis is going to be sent out to organize this area. He's going to advocate for a Southern Continental Railroad route because they're trying to decide where they want to put a transcontinental railroad across the country so they can link the East and the West Coast together. Now, he's going to advocate for a Southern route, especially using the corridors that they used during the Mexican-American War to send troops there. James Gadsden is going to go to Mexico to buy land for the Southern Railroad. And he's going to buy this yellow portion that you see here of Southern Arizona and Southern New Mexico for $10 million. So that's the Gadsden purchase. But the biggest thing that's going to happen during his presidency is the Kansas-Nebraska Act. He's going to create the territories of Kansas and Nebraska. Trade with China and Japan is increasing, so we really, really need the Transcontinental Railroad. And so those areas between the Mississippi River and California, there's a lot of land there that hasn't been picked and chosen as territory. So we need to get that area as territories for the United States so that we can build that Transcontinental Railroad route. Debate is to where should it go. The Gadsden Purchase goes through, and so there is that southern route possibility, but a lot of people want it through the middle of the country. So Kansas and Nebraska become very important. Stephen Douglas is going to promote popular sovereignty in the area. The South is happy because this would give slavery a chance to expand. Whigs try to have it taken out, however, but it passes and we gain the 2 new territories. So now these 2 new territories now have to decide what they're going to do. Are they to come in as slave states? Or are they going to come in as free states? So popular sovereignty is going to be very important with them. Through this debate, we have an emerging of this new Republican Party. A combination of 4 groups. 1, Whigs who no longer have a platform. 2, the Know Nothing Party, which supported nativism. Remember, nativism is that idea of supporting only those born here, no immigrants allowed. Anti-slavery Democrats and Free Soilers. So that's where the Republican Party is going to form up through all of these individuals. They all joined to become the New Republicans. Abraham Lincoln is one of its first members. And Abraham Lincoln will become its most predominant member in just a few years. Out of the Kansas-Nebraska Act comes a situation called Bleeding Kansas. Nebraska established themselves as a free territory, relatively easy, overwhelmingly. But Kansas is up for grabs. It's 50 million acres. Groups on both sides rushed to populate the territory so that they could vote for it to come in. Now, issues are going to rise as both sides, both Free Soilers and that of those who support slavery, are going to clash. In March of 1855, on Election Day, a group called Border Ruffians, so the pro-slavery individuals who are going to go to Kansas, they're going to vote in those elections, and then they're going to go back home to Missouri. So there's a lot of illegal voting that are going to be set up in Kansas to try to get it set up as a slave state. We have one town that had about 200 people, but on election day in March 1855, they had 1,200 votes. So obviously that there's election fraud going on there. Pierce will recognize the pro-slavery element in Kansas. He doesn't really care if they slip a piece of paper in front of him. He signs it and moves on. When the governor complains to the president that this is, it was illegal elections, they needed to reheld it, Pierce just replaces him with a pro-slavery one. Free Staters are going to set up their own government in Topeka, Kansas, and they're going to apply for statehood. Now, this is going to lead to hostilities. The first one is the sack of Lawrence, the town of Lawrence, Kansas. It is a free town. Pro-slavery forces are going to cross the border and destroy the town. There's a movie called Ride with the Devil that talks about this. It's all about border ruffians and those who want to get rid of the Free Soilers and set up Kansas as a free state. John Brown is going to form up an armed band of African Americans. He is a 55-year-old white man. He's devoted to ending slavery, and he has this all or nothing mentality that he has. 2 days after the sack of Lawrence, we have the Potawatomi Massacre. It's a pro-slavery settlement where John Brown and 4 of his sons are going to go into the town, and they're going to cause a lot of problems, and they carry broadswords with them, and so they're going to hack 5 men to death who are very much in support of slavery. So we have these hostilities going on. But the Senate still has to figure out, what are we going to do? They know that the election in March was illegal. There were too many individuals who were voting that should not have been there. So what do we do? On May 22nd, 1856, Charles Sumner, who's a Republican from Massachusetts, he's going to speak very heatedly against slavery. Preston Brooks, who is a Southern individual, he's going to enter the Senate floor, and he's going to begin to really just beat Sumner with his cane until it broke. Charles Sumner almost died. Southerners are going to rejoice. They're even going to send Preston Brooks canes in the mail. This will drive more Northerners to the Republican Party and goes against what they think is going to happen. Now, Kansas is still up for grabs. What are we going to do? Well, Pierce's presidency ends, and so now we have to move on to James Buchanan's presidency. James Buchanan now will have to deal with the fallout from this, because Bleeding Kansas is going to last for about 10 years. So we will move on to 12.4.